All right, so this was a sale-leaseback, 49 concrete pipe manufacturing and storage facilities located across the United States as well as Canada. The proceeds of about $220 million were used by Forterra for a future add-on acquisition that they completed shortly after we closed our deal. So with 49 properties, there's a great deal of due diligence you have to do, both at a property level and also at a corporate level. And that puts a huge premium on being able to deliver on time, having a good team of attorneys and consultants to work with you, as well as having a company that's going to have the capital like W.P. Carey does to fund $220 million on the day that you need it, because this acquisition was closing very shortly after we closed our sale-leaseback, creating a huge premium on that time. We recently closed another deal with another portfolio company of a separate private equity firm, but a similar situation where we're providing acquisition financing and where time is of the essence in terms of meeting a deadline to really fund that acquisition and get the sale-leaseback done in time. And this was a case where we were able to close on a portfolio of two separate properties within just over 30 days of learning about the deal. And that was to meet up with literally the day of closing timing for this acquisition. So I think there are a number of drivers kind of into 2016 and into 2017 that are inducing corporates to use sale-leasebacks. I think one is kind of a lack of availability of financing from more traditional sources like banks. So we've seen banks pull back from lending to lower and unrated credits, and that makes the sale-leaseback a very attractive alternative. I think another source of sale-leaseback demand is the mergers and acquisitions activity we've seen in the last few years. I mean, we've seen unprecedented levels of M&A, and when a company is acquired with substantial owned real estate on its balance sheet, that's a very attractive opportunity for an acquirer to immediately spin off that real estate at a higher multiple than they paid for the business. And realizing that kind of multiple arbitrage is very, very beneficial to the acquirer. So the Forterra deal is a very interesting one from an underwriting perspective where, we've got 49 assets across 2 different countries in many different real estate markets. But what we really look to in the underwriting process, particularly to Forterra, is what are the earnings that these sites are generating on a site level basis. And in the case of Forterra, those earnings for our portfolio is well in excess of the rent that we're now charging Forterra to use those assets. And that gives us comfort that throughout the economic cycle, they're going to be able to pay the rent, even if the earnings were to dip and rise over time. So I think for manufacturing as a whole, given that the economic outlook in the United States is somewhat clouded, it's unclear where we're going from here. But the product that Forterra serves, concrete pipes, that's effectively a utility. That's going to be very separate from consumer demand and corporate demand. There's always going to be a demand for utilities and making sure infrastructure is solid throughout the United States, and Forterra stands to benefit from that. So with a long-term lease, like a 20-year lease in Forterra, we're really looking to the credit of the tenant more so than the real estate itself. What the highest and best use for this real estate in 20 years is probably going to be is continue to be a concrete pipe manufacturing plant. So we're looking at how has Forterra done in the past 20 years, and how much money have they earned, and do we think they're going to be able to pay the rent for the next 20 years? And that goes into what we talked about before, where we're looking at the rent that they're going to have to pay relative to what they're earning now and making sure there's a comfortable coverage there.